Disclaimer. Please note that this episode contains depictions of violence that some people may find disturbing. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the speakers, commenters, experts, and/or hosts. They do not explicitly or necessarily reflect nor represent the channel's policy or the views held by this channel or broadcaster. The broadcaster or its channel cannot be held accountable for all or any views expressed during this program. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of The Night Crew with Drew and Katie. Today we will be talking about the Hello Kitty murder. I heard about this case a few years ago and it honestly traumatized me and I never forgot about it. So I was excited to share this story with Drew. I already gave him a glimpse of how gruesome it can be.
Yeah, I knew nothing about this case at all, and from what Katie has told me so far about it, it's really messed up. So can't wait for you guys to also listen to how messed up this case is, because it's really, really messed up.
But viewer discretion is advised. It does get graphic and gruesome, but you can also look up crime scene photos on Google because they are there, especially of the mermaid Hello Kitty doll that was found on the scene.
Oh boy.
We will get into that in a little bit though. So we're going to start with the background.
Well, the background of this case, it began with a 14-year-old girl named Lau. Now, she walked into the Hong Kong police station and told them, hey, she thought a woman's ghost was haunting her. She told them that a woman was tortured to death and she helped commit the crime. Eventually, the police followed her back to her flat in her house and found an oversized Hello Kitty doll with a decapitated skull within it.
Yeah. So, apparently, I mean, if I was working at the police station, I'd be like, okay, we can't help you with the paranormal. But she actually told them that she did help with a crime, not voluntarily, but, I mean, she gave the... Why are you looking at me like that?
This is just really, really odd.
It's really bad. That's why it traumatized me, and I have not forgotten about it to this day. But eventually the girl kept talking. She told them more what happened, and that's when they went to her house and found that.
Just to find
the defendant's house, I should say.
How do you think she discovered a head was in the doll?
Well, she was there. That's all I'm gonna say for now. But
What do you mean she was there?
She was there when the victim was murdered.
Oh.
But
okay,
either way,
okay.
the whole reason, this is the most messed up part. The police did not know about this until she went to the police and told them about it. I'm not sure how long it was until they got caught, but I'm guessing it wasn't that soon. If this little girl was living there and she said, I'm being haunted by this woman I helped kill.
Yeah, that's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
That's very, very messed up. I mean, especially to put on a 15-year-old girl, though. That's hard. That's hard. That is hard.
But you will find out why she had to do what she had to do.
So a lot of these names in this case, they're from Hong Kong. So we're not totally scrapping these names, but we're kind of making nicknames for them, so it would be easy for everybody else to understand, pretty much. So we'll call the victim Fan. F-A-N, Fan. She was born in 1976 and was abandoned by her family as a child. Due to this, she grew up in an all-girls orphanage. Now, I guess in Hong Kong, maybe China as a country, once, even males or females turn 15, they kick her out of the orphanages. Now, I guess it's due to an age restriction. I did not know that, but they kick everybody out when they're 15.
That's a young age to kick someone out. Because I think here it's 18 here.
Yes, it is 18 here, because you're technically 18, you're adult at that point. So, Fan, at 15 years old, she was homeless, addicted to drugs, and forced into street prostitution. Now, as a 15-year-old girl, forced into street prostitution, I think that's already bad enough, minus the drugs and being homeless.
She had no other choice, though. I mean, I couldn't find anything about her family. Well, obviously, they abandoned her, so, like, she has no one. Even the orphanage was like, good luck. We're not going to help you.
It's almost, like, impossible for you to succeed at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But at 21 years old, she began working at a brothel named Romance Villa. Now, in 1996, Fan married one of her clients, and we'll call him NG, because that's a very simplified version of their name, who was also addicted to drugs. Now, Fan's neighbor described her husband, NG, as abusive and would often hear Fan and NG fighting. Now, in 1998, Fan gave birth to her son, which, helped her change her life around. She quit prostitution, drugs. She finally left her husband, so good for her on that one. And she got a hostless job at a nightclub named Empress Karaoke Club. However, though, due to this, she had obviously lower income and struggled to support her family.
Yeah, and by the time she got this hostess job, it started to fix everything about her. Literally 5 months later, after she gave birth, after she got her life together, she was killed. So she didn't even have time to be proud of herself and to pick up all the broken pieces.
Yeah,
Truly.
that is really sad. That's just a rough life. That truly is like one of the roughest versions of life you can live, especially as a female, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know much about the culture there in the 90s, but I mean, this is gonna sound so stupid, but I didn't even know prostitution was a thing in China.
Yes, Katie, prostitution's everywhere, believe it or not.
Look, we see it all the time in America, and I was just like...
Believe it or not, it's in Iraq too. Trust me.
Yeah, and human trafficking, that's what I'm thinking of, human trafficking. But, anyways, she got her life together, she had her baby, proud mom. But this is where it starts to turn. So, I'm calling her Fawn. Fawn had a regular client at the brothel named Chan. He was 33 years old. And he was a Wo Xing Wo triad member. And I had to look this up because I had no idea what that was. And basically it said Wo Xing Wo is the oldest of the Wo group in Hong Kong. And they've been involved with prostitution, drug trafficking, gambling, and extortion.
Are they like a cartel or like what?
Yeah,
what
it kind of sounds like.
Okay.
It didn't say anything about murder, but truth be told, I really didn't look into it that much. I was just curious to see who they were. And I mean, this is one of the oldest groups, so they got their shit together apparently.
Well, I'm sure there are cartels out there who haven't murdered people, but they're still a cartel. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's members in there that have been convicted of murder.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
obviously, this is a group that is involved in crime.
Yeah.
Especially in the 90s. Let's see. So, talking about Chan again, after my little rant, he had problematic behavior all throughout middle school, high school, all throughout his life. And was previously convicted for drug trafficking. So this kid was a juvenile. He grew up with crime. Who knows how he got in this group, but...
His entire life surrounded by crime, pretty much.
Yeah. And... Oof,
wow.
I don't even want to know his history with family and environment. It's probably pretty horrible.
Must have been really, really horrible. Yes.
Yeah, if he... Yeah. Anyways.
Well, not to go off what we were talking about, but there are some people who are really, really wealthy and have everything given to them, and that they just murder people for fun. It depends. I wouldn't say, coming from a poor family or a wealthy family, with a lot of other circumstances involved, like parents, etc., doesn't mean you're always going to be a killer.
Mm-hmm.
But it can happen in rich and poor families. It's not just poor families.
Yeah, I mean, he might have had a family member that was in it, and they were really wealthy, and they got off on committing crime. It could be
or
that too.
He had a wealthy family member that introduced him to drugs, and then he got into drug trafficking. It could go either way.
Yeah, pretty much. But back to the story. keep having
Sorry, I didn't.
having squirrel moments, but
Yeah.
that's okay. In 1999, Fawn stole Chan's wallet, which contained $4,000. That's in American terms. And he demanded her to pay him back the $4,000, plus an additional fee of $10,000.
Jeez.
Because he is an asshole. So Fawn returned the $4,000, but needed more time to pay back the $10,000. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, let's get this straight. She stole $4,000 from one of her clients named Chan, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't appreciate that. I want my $4,000 back and an extra $10,000 from what you stole from me.
Yeah, $14,000 total.
If she stole the money from him, what makes him think that she can return the money back to him along with an extra $10K? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
He is a pimp, so it's basically, I'm literally about to go into this, but the whole thing is he wants to use her to get more money out of her. Like, that's how he's going to pay back that's how she's going to pay back the 10 grand.
Well, the Wu Xing Lu is involved with using people for their bodies to gain money from them. So, I mean, to be honest, it's not really surprising.
And I mean, he holds way more power than Fawn did, so I mean, she literally has no choice in this matter. She stole from him. He's like, oh, you owe me way more than that.
Then, he must have had a lot of power to be able to make her do stuff like that. I don't know.
I mean, yeah. If he's a pimp, he can make good money doing that, I'm sure.
Well, on March 17th, 1999, this is all after the, Chan wanting the $14,000 from her and her returning the $4,000, right? Fan was abducted by 3 men, which I'm sure was part of the Wu Xing Lu.
Yeah.
And 1 girl at her flat. The 3 men were Chan, Wai Lun, and Xing Cho. And Xing Cho was an old boyfriend of Lau's, and it was Chan's grooming victim was Lau. So they pretty much took Fan into an apartment at Granville Road in Hong Kong, rented by Chan, which had about 5 bedrooms and was decorated in Hello Kitty products. This is where they imprisoned Fan for a month. Now, I'm going to try to explain this so people understand. So the 3 men were Chan, okay, Xing Cho, and then Lau was the girl that was 14 years old, and then the other guy was Chan. So there's 4 people right there, if that made any sense.
Yeah,
Just trying to clarify.
Basically, Chan, he's like the main one that did this whole thing. He had a grooming victim that was Lau. She's 14.
She's 14 years, yes.
But she's also, she's loosely dating Xing Cho.
Okay.
And that's obviously she was a prostitute as well. That's why I'm saying loosely. He just said, oh, you're my girlfriend.
Well, I'm sure she doesn't have a choice.
Yeah, at the time, I think she was actually 13.
Oh my God.
And then by the time this happened, 14. Either way, she is young.
That is way too young.
She's already in prostitution, and obviously Chan is her pimp. So, yeah. Either way, it's messed up. You got all these older men with this 14-year-old abusing this woman.
So they rented out a place where, they had 5 bedrooms and all of it was decorated in the Hello Kitty products. Now, this is where they imprisoned Fan for a month. Initially, Chan had intended to make money off of Fan by pimping her to other men, but continued to increase the amount that she owed to him. So not only did she owe $14,000, even though she returned $4,000 of it, at that point she owns 10, but he's like, you know what, I'm going to make more and more money off of her, so I'm going to keep pimping her out, and kept getting more and more money from it.
Well, And another messed up thing, why does this grown man have his whole house decorated with Hello Kitty products? That to me
Yeah, that's
signifies that he's using young females as prostitutes, essentially.
Yeah, that's
to make them feel more comfortable.
That's disgusting. That's just, he even went the last mile to think about, like, how can I comfort these girls, or like make them feel a little bit more at home.
Yeah, little girls.
While they're 13, 14, 15 years old, and they're getting pimped out to grown men. That's disgusting. That's really effed up.
Yeah, he said little girls like Hello Kitty, I'm gonna decorate my whole apartment like that. To reel them in.
That is terrible.
It is.
Gosh. That is terrible.
And it only gets worse. Because next we're going to talk about the torture of Fawn. Now, I feel like there's way more things Fawn went through than this, but I really couldn't find any more than we had, which is still a decent sized list. But either way, we're going to start to go down that list and just explain some of the things these three men did to this poor woman.
So the torture of Fan, right, where, like Katie said, we're going to go and deep dive into it. Now, this is rated well over PG-13, I would say.
Yeah.
But here we go. So Fawn was tortured. She was raped, beaten with metal bars, water pipes. She was force-fed a bunch of drugs, and the men wrapped her in electrical wires and hung her up from the ceiling for hours. While they hung her up, she would be used as a punching bag. So not only did they do, all that really, really messed up stuff, they beat the shit out of her while she was hanging up from electrical wires. But with the electrical wires, they would tie her up, make her sit on the floor as they played video games and watched TV.
So the thing that pisses me off the most is that they're torturing her for a month, and then they just do their regular things as she's sitting there crying, pissing herself. Like, how they're definitely psychopaths or something.
No, that's like inhumane at that point. Like,
I don't even know how they come up with half of this stuff.
I mean, not saying everything else wasn't inhumane, because it was, but that's just, you have to stoop to a level of, like, fucked up, dare I say it, to be like that as a human, to do that to someone and know what you're doing is wrong, but you keep doing it. Yeah, you have to stoop so low.
Well, all of this stuff makes me think they definitely did do a lot of torture within their triad group, because how do they know to do all these torture techniques to this woman? There has to be,
which makes me think it's like, it makes me think it's like a cartel, pretty much,
It definitely is.
Or a clan, whatever you want to call it. But she was kicked in the head around, 50 times or so. It's probably a lot more than that, to be blatantly honest. That's what the medical examiners could tell, but obviously it was probably a lot more than that. Now, they used spices and chili oil and rubbed them into her wounds. And oyster sauce was thrown into her face, and they made her drink it.
Which I've never had oyster sauce, but I heard it's absolutely disgusting.
I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah.
And the spices and chili oil, oof.
Yeah, that would burn, because I know she was cut and bruised and bleeding and whatnot.
Yeah.
From everything they were doing to her.
But her legs and feet were burned with candle wax, and then they would set straws on fire, right, and have them drip the melting plastic onto Fawn's feet until they blistered. Now, once her feet were burned, they would then hit her feet with sticks. So after all this plastic hardened on her feet, there'd be blisters under this plastic. They'd beat the shit out of her feet with sticks.
Yeah, and I read that all of this, like the melting of the candle wax and plastic, she couldn't walk, obviously, after being through all of this.
Well, to be honest, I don't think anybody could walk off
No,
of
absolutely not.
That must have been so painful.
No. And then she was forced to consume human urine and feces. She was soiled in her own urine and feces. Ugh, this part's so nasty. And the men would urinate on her face and in her mouth. And
Ew.
if she spit out the urine, they would beat her up even more. And then, going back to consuming human feces, Lau, the 13-year-old / 14-year-old, she defecated in a box, and the men forced Fawn to eat it.
Oh my god, that is so disgusting.
And obviously, Lau, she had to assault Fawn as well because these men were telling her to, and if Lau didn't, then she would get beat up too.
She was probably scared she was gonna get put in the same place if she did it.
Exactly. So, that's messed up too.
I can't believe that's so disgusting, and
Yeah, it is.
I just don't understand, how could you do that to someone? You know, like, how can you push yourself to do that to someone else?
I don't know. They have severe problems, especially Chan. He's the ringleader of this whole thing. Something was definitely wrong with him.
And then to force a 14-year-old girl to do that, I'm sure it messed with her head too.
Oh yeah, definitely. She's probably PTSD the rest of her life.
Jeez.
I can go through the same thing.
But they forced Fawn to smile and say that she was enjoying the beatings. Now, if she refused to say it, they would torture her even more. Lau would often join in on the torture of Fawn too, since she was being held there against her will and told to do so.
Yeah, and just imagine they're doing this every single day for a month. I quite honestly don't know how Fawn survived that long. Because, I mean, going through all of this, just being beat up every day, raped every day, pretty much.
Not to mention for 30 days.
Yeah.
30 days. I mean, I don't know what kept her fighting for so long. I'm wondering,
Her son.
honestly, at this point, did they even give her actual food and water? Like, how did she stay alive?
So.
Because I think you need water every, at least once every 3 weeks, or you will die. I think it's actually shorter than that. I think it's like a week or two, if that.
Well,
I think food's about 3 weeks.
They fed her shit and urine, so I don't know if that counts, but...
Where are you getting the water from? Anyway, sorry, I'm going way off topic.
Either way, she survived 30 days somehow.
That is very impressive.
Which...
Yeah.
I wish she would have died sooner, because just all that pain she's going through for 30 days is horrible.
Yeah.
And the fact that they kept her alive long enough to continue that is also just mind-blowing.
It's terrible.
It is.
There's no other way you can say it. It's terrible.
Yeah. And once they found Fawn's body, she died in the bathroom. I can never say her name. Lau found Fawn dead, and the three men left Fawn's body on the floor for days in the bathroom while they went to the arcade, they slept, they played video games, they looked at her body, and they kept discussing, well, how are we gonna do this? How should we do this? The way I read it, they really did not care how to dispose of this. They didn't think they'd get in trouble. They were just like, she's there. This is a hassle we have to deal with now. That's what it kind of seemed like.
Well, were these men high on anything? Because if I'm not mistaken, they were high on ice. But what is that? What is ice?
It's a drug. I really can't remember what it is exactly, but it is a drug that gets you high. And
wow,
they were high on it when they were torturing her, disposing of the body. I want to say it's more of like a stimulant.
Okay.
So it keeps them awake, keeps them energized. I want to say that's what it is, especially if they're taking it. It doesn't seem like it's a depressant, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either way, while they're high on ice and just, chilling, Chan and his 2 men lifted Fawn's body into a bathtub, and they used a saw to dismember her whole body, and then Chan decapitated Fawn's head, while the other 2 men stripped the flesh off of her body, bagged it, and put it in a freezer.
What? What's the point of...
I don't know.
Oh, I don't get that.
I don't know.
I mean,
why...
what's the point of all this, honestly?
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they stripped the flesh off of it. I feel like that's extra work, but...
Yeah.
Either way, they're bagging it and they're putting it in the freezer. For whatever reason.
Yeah.
So it doesn't decompose quicker, I guess. But either way,
well, I mean,
nasty.
You could say all you want. This whole thing in general is just really messed up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it gets worse. So, Chan gave Lao a bag of Fawn's intestines and told her to boil it to stop the smell. So she did.
14-year-old girl.
Yeah. And also, as Chan boiled Fawn's head, he forced Lao to look at the head while he boiled it.
Oh, man.
He's basically like, look at this.
He's pretty much saying, like, look what I can do to you and get away with it. That's pretty much, I mean, they didn't get away with it, obviously, but that's pretty much what he's trying to instill into this 14-year-old girl.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the rest of the body parts, they boiled them and threw them in the trash. And they're basically just boiling all the body parts so they don't smell and they decompose down to the bone, essentially. That's why they did it. I can't believe they just threw it in the trash, though. They were just looking to get caught.
A funny thing was, during this 10-hour disposal of all of Fawn's body parts, the men who were doing all this work, I guess, got hungry. So they decided to boil noodles right next to Fawn's floating head that was being boiled. And the most disgusting part, they used the same utensils to stir her head in their noodles.
That's so disgusting.
That is disgusting.
Like, I have no words. That's just, why would you even do that? They really did not give a shit about any of this, apparently.
I guess not.
They really did not care.
They just...
Disgusting.
Yeah, it really is. But once Fawn's head was just a skull, they sewed her skull into a part of a Hello Kitty stuffed animal, and that stuffed animal was a mermaid, obviously. So they decided to put her head in a Hello Kitty mermaid stuffed animal.
Yeah. And this Hello Kitty doll was obviously really big. You can, like I said, you can look up a picture of it on Google. I don't know if I showed you a picture of it or not.
What would you say, like, how big is the head? How big is the head of the doll?
I mean, the head of the doll could fit a skull in there. I don't know why they sewed the skull into the head. I guess so it didn't move around.
That too is very fucked up. Because they had someone, either they did it or someone else did it, and yet that takes time. That takes a lot of patience and time to sew someone's skull into a doll, because you have to make little holes in their skull to sew it in.
That's so nasty.
Yeah.
I'm trying to describe how big this mermaid doll is. I mean, I'd say, you know those body pillows you can sleep with at night? It's probably that big.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's a decent size. It's like an oversized stuffed animal, like those bears you see at the store.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Jeez, man.
And there's crime scene photos of the doll laying on the bed. Ugh. It's just a haunting picture.
Yeah, that is freaky.
It's like, that's how they found her. Ugh.
That's like the poltergeist for a ghost.
I know.
Well,
that's why she was saying she was being haunted, because she's living with this mermaid doll, and she's living with the body parts.
Maybe you should have tried to do something to help instead of continuing to help torture Fawn.
She had no choice, though. I mean,
see, I disagree. I always believe, this is just my personal opinion, there are circumstances that may be different. I personally believe you can always do something to make the situation better. Even if it's the smallest of things, it might just help in the long run.
I mean, she went to the police. So I guess that's...
But why didn't she do it sooner? You see what I mean?
She was scared she was going to get killed by these people in the same way. That's why.
Wow.
They scared her straight. They really did.
So, during the whole trial of this, right? During the investigation, the police found Fawn's body parts within the same apartment and sustained evidence of the three men interacting with the body parts, which is absolutely disgusting, because if you know what interacting with the body parts means, I'm sure you can imagine what that means, and we're not going to say it. However, due to the decomposition of Fawn's body, examiners weren't able to determine a cause of death. Now, the investigators weren't sure if a drug overdose was it, or torture was it, or the lack of water, food. They don't really know what the cause of death was.
Well, the fact that they decomposed of her so well, they couldn't even determine a cause of death. This cause of death is very important in sentencing, which is why their sentences were laughable pretty much. It's ridiculous how little time they got.
Well, so Lau testified against the three men for immunity and protection, which she got. Now, the three men were convicted of manslaughter, and the jury stated that death wasn't the intent in this case, which, if anybody knows anything about torturing and planning to not let her leave or escape, they're going to kill her either way. It doesn't matter how you look at it. But this jury, for whatever reason, decided, in death wasn't the intent in this case. So these three men were sentenced to life in prison with a chance of parole in 20 years. So they did all of this. So what, they got out in 2014. They probably got on parole in 2014.
Yeah, I mean, I looked up if any of them got out. One of them got out.
Oh, he was released in April 2014.
Yeah, so Chan and Luong continued to serve their life sentences. However, I don't know how to say his name. I'm saying L.E. L.E. was released in April 2014 after he appealed his case and served 18 years in prison.
I don't know why I can't believe even after that he appealed his case and won and got out in April 2014 but served 18 years in prison. What?
So this trial took only 6 weeks to come up with a verdict. And it is just mind-boggling to me that they find all these body parts in this apartment, and they say all three men have touched these body parts, obviously, sawing off her body parts and stuff.
They did their stuff with the body parts too.
And, well, I don't know about that. But they're obviously handling these body parts to get rid of them, to hide them. And they're now saying that, drug overdose. Or was it torture? There ain't no way this was a drug overdose. They cut up her body. And how is that manslaughter? It should be murder. Which makes no sense. And parole? They do not deserve parole. No.
Just the whole thing is wild. They shouldn't even be out. They should die in that prison or get the death sentence. But that's not up to me, as I guess it's up to some jury that stated death wasn't the intent in this case.
Yeah. But I read somewhere, I can't remember which of the three men it was, but I know one of the men, well, I guess it's the one that got out, he was released from prison, obviously, and then 8 years later, he was convicted of rape. It's like,
why does that not surprise me?
This is why they should have been convicted of murder and either had the, I don't know if they do the death penalty in Hong Kong or not.
In China, I don't know.
Either way, it should have been life in prison with no chance of parole.
Yeah, parole is crazy. They should just been either the death sentence or life in prison. That's the two choices they should have given him.
Well, Hong Kong is pretty modest, so maybe they don't have the death penalty.
I don't know.
Way.
Obviously it's a different country. They don't view it as the same as we do.
Yeah, exactly. So. And this was in the 90s, so I don't know.
Yeah, it was much different back then.
I'm not sure what the three men admitted to. I mean, I'm sure Lau, I'm sure she said a lot of things in trial so she didn't have to go to prison, obviously. But I'm just curious what the men admitted to doing to Fawn. But, I mean, either way, it's just this whole trial, the whole torture, it's unfair. The men should have gotten a way longer sentence for these heinous freaking crimes they committed.
And I feel bad for Lau, but I mean, there's some things she could have helped out with, but I know 90% of the time when you're in a situation like that, you're not going to be able to do anything, especially when you're 14.
Yeah.
She was just so scared of them and what they were going to do to her, and while she was watching a girl that wasn't too much older than her pretty much get, tortured and raped and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? So
yeah, but either way, I can't even imagine Fawn's son growing up and him learning about this story. So, I mean, thoughts and prayers sent his way, because this is just an awful case. But either way, if you have any questions about this case, or if you want to look up the pictures from it, Google, YouTube. I feel like a decent amount of people are starting to find out about the Hello Kitty murder, so it's getting out there slowly but surely.
Yeah, yep. It just takes maybe a podcast called The Night Crew to get it out there.
That is true. And next week we will be discussing the
blue-eyed people.
The blue-eyed people. Drew kind of told me a little bit about that.
I don't want to spoil too much. It's not proven. It's almost like a legend like Bigfoot, but in the Amazon rainforest. And we'll get into it a lot more when it comes up. But I'm very excited to talk about this and the personal experiences people have had with these so-called blue-eyed people.
Yes, and that is next week's episode. Yeah. So like, subscribe, follow us on everything. We have like every platform out there, so please.
Mostly by Apple Podcasts, because we've been having issues with them and it's been a headache. So
everything but Apple Podcasts.
So far, we're working on it. We're working on it.
Yes. But either way, have a good night, and we will see you next week on The Night Crew.
Peace out. Sleep tight. So, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at The Night Crew. That is capital T and then HE, capital NITE, capital KREW. That is The Night Crew. Thank you guys. We really appreciate all of your help and all of your support. And we will see you next week. Thank you and have a good day.